Welcome back to the Wendy's Tournament Tip-Off Show, presented by your local Pick and Save stores. I'm Mike McGivern, alongside Coach Sid from St. Francis. Hey, Coach, we're now to Division II, and three teams from our area, and there is some talent. Actually, two teams from our area, but I feel like Notre Dame. I talked to Sarah Rohde a number of times on my show, and let's start with that first game. In Division II, Friday, tomorrow at 1:35, first tip-off is Pewaukee against West Salem, the number 1 and number 4. And when you talk about Pewaukee, you have to start with the Twins, I would believe, right? The Terrian Twins, both going to Michigan State, and awfully talented basketball players.
They're special, but it doesn't end there. Janowski, Rutherford, Pieper. I mean, they got kids off the bench that legitimately could start at a lot of places.
They are 27-1. And the only game that they lost 44-43 against a team from Illinois. And this is their first game of the year. They beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame has not lost since. Notre Dame, two-time Division State champions, beat Pewaukee each time, I believe, correct?
Correct.
And so when I had the girls in, I had the Twins in on a radio show that I do along with their head coach. And we talked to them about Notre Dame, and they said we sure would like to be able to get to meet them one more time up at the Russ Center. And right now, if everything goes the way it looks like it's going to go, that's going to happen. You know, the Janowski kid, her brother's going to Nebraska. She's a big-time player. And the reason I start with these twins, probably because I had them in studio and enjoyed our conversation, both have decided to take a full ride to Michigan State and continue to play basketball together. What's interesting when I watch them play, as typical twins, they know where each other is on the floor, and they can get after each other a little bit. Like, you got to defend better, pass me the ball. But, man, at the end of the day, I'll tell you what, they stand up for each other. They're great ambassadors for the Pewaukee basketball program and that community.
Yeah, they're great players, great teammates, great kids.
They are. They were 12-2, 12-0. I'm sorry, in the Woodland West, first place in that conference, and it's a conference with some pretty good basketball players. They've had a chance to run the table. That one loss to the team from Illinois by 1 point, but everything that they've worked for, I think, this year is the idea of, okay, they're not taking West Salem for granted by any means. That's a good basketball team. They're 24-4, took first place in the Cooley Conference, and Megan Johnson just put up 40 against a really good team.
Against McFarland, who was at state last year and led by Tegan Malini, who's going to Iowa. I mean, that's a nice win.
It's a great win. So you know Pewaukee is not taking that for granted. They understand that West Salem is an awfully talented team. When I talked to these girls, they said, look, we're going to work as hard as we have to. We know Notre Dame's going to do the same. And I think that first game, and that tips off tomorrow at 1:35, Pewaukee against West Salem, the 1 against the 4, followed by Wauwatosa East against Notre Dame. And what's interesting to me is Wauwatosa East, you know, a couple of really young girls that are driving that team right now. And they're coached by Mary Merg, and I've known her mom and dad a long time. Her brother played AAU basketball with my son Matthew, played at Greendale, and Mary Merg was a heck of a basketball player. And now she's got this Wauwatosa East team, you know, up to state, and I think maybe a year earlier than people thought.
I coached against Mary Merg when she was a player at Greendale. Heck of a player, had a great career at Whitewater. I was sharing a story with you. 2021 season, I was at a sectional final game at West South Central, and she came in, stood over and was talking with me, and she had just come off a 3-19 year, and she said, "Boy, I got this kid's going into 8th grade. This is going to be a special class," and you kind of hear that at times,
sure.
But that's the class she's talking about, those sophomores that are, and I've seen them play. She'll have them prepared. She'll have them well prepared. They had a great game plan against a very good Pius team.
A friend of mine coached Emma Close in grade school, And he called me prior to the Pius game, and he said, look, if you get a chance to watch her play, she's very calm and cool, doesn't turn the ball over, makes the right decisions on the floor, doesn't care if she scores, gets everybody involved. She's sophomore, averaging 16 a game, and she can shoot the ball like crazy. And he said, look, she just makes the right decisions. The lights never get too bright for her. She's the same player in a championship game as she is in, the first game of the year. And I look forward to seeing her play. They get a tough draw. Notre Dame Sarah Rode has that program just always, very close to the top, back-to-back state champions. They have run the table since that first loss against Pewaukee. Coach, what does it take to build a program like Sarah's done?
They got, obviously, the community, their community up there. And when you win, it kind of feeds itself. They got 7 kids scoring in double digits. I know they got 2 Division I players led by Gracie Gresh, who's going to play at Wisconsin. Another kid going to Illinois State, the FADA. 2 Division II kids going to Northern Michigan. I mean, that's a machine up there.
When this time of year, she's kind enough to give us time on a radio show that I do, and she takes no credit for this. And it's interesting, and sometimes you talk to coaches who say, listen, I built this, and she talks about these players getting kids that are freshmen and sophomores to understand what it takes to wear the Notre Dame jersey. To not to what's on the back, what's on the front, and how we're going to continue to have this kind of success is when the young kids buy in and understand the amount of work that the older kids have put in. When they do that, when they watch the leaders on a team like Notre Dame, they're not resting on their laurels. They're not saying, hey, look, we're Notre Dame, we walk in the gym, we're going to win. They're spending as much time in the gym and the weight room and getting into summer leagues and getting shots up and doing all the stuff you have to do to continue to have that kind of success.
It's tradition. It's a great tradition up there. What's interesting, too, we had talked that Pewaukee and them both, because of success factor, will be bumping up to Division I next year. But I'm sure they'll fare just fine up there.
Yeah, and look, I don't understand all the numbers when it comes to that, or if you do get bumped up, when you get bumped back down. Well, I'll have you, once we figure that out, I'll have you on my radio show and we'll discuss that. But I can tell you, when you're a program like Pewaukee and you're a program like Notre Dame, one is up in the valley and one's here in Pewaukee. If you were to do a deep dive into why their programs are so successful year after year, I think it starts with the youth program, the community buys in, the school buys in, and when you have really good leaders that will teach some of the younger kids what it takes to be part of that program and the pride that they have. When you're somebody like Notre Dame right now, you don't want to be the team. You've won 2 in a row. You don't want to be the team that ends that. And if you're Pewaukee, the boys team has won 3 in a row, and you're trying your best to be that girls team to get one. And we're going to do predictions at the end. I live in Pewaukee. I can tell you right now I'm picking Pewaukee, but that's just my pick. But when you're part of those programs, you understand that you don't want to be the senior class that lets this thing drop, or you want to be the junior senior class that finally brings home that gold ball, and the amount of pride that they have in those 2 programs is really high. Hey, Coach, can I ask you this? When you look at those other 2 teams, Wauwatosa East and West Salem, and I don't mean to not talk more about them, but when you look at those 2 teams, you're thinking, look, West Salem might have a chance against Pewaukee because they're really good. And Wauwatosa East, Marymount, you have to give them a bunch of credit. I think it's going to be a difficult task for them to be able to knock off somebody like Notre Dame.
True, but they've been doubted all year.
They have.
They believe in that. Just watching them play, that they got that special, you want to call it magic carpet ride feel to them. I'm not leading off any prediction here, but don't doubt them.
Hey, last question, then we're going to get to a break. When you've seen this as I have, when you're a team like Notre Dame and a team like Pewaukee and West Salem, they've had a lot of wins throughout the years, the last 3, 4, 5 years, and I've been part of some of that where the school starts to kind of take that for granted. Midway through the year, they're saying to the players, say, make sure that we get off that day so that we can go up to state. And there's almost more pressure on the team and the players when they continue to win, because now you're being hunted. Every single time you walk into a gym, if you're Notre Dame or you're Pewaukee or West Salem for that matter, when you go to an away game, that's the biggest game that the other team has to play. And so the amount of pressure you're feeling to continue on this journey, yet people that are around the program, kids in the school, are all thinking, well, we've won 2 in a row. That team always wins. I can't wait till we get to state. And I think that's a very difficult place for some of these kids. They got to just kind of not listen to the noise and continue to do what they do on the floor.
And we got to remember, they are young kids. They got chem tests to take the next day, or pre-calc tests, or they got issues at home with mom or dad, or maybe a boyfriend, girlfriend issue.
Who they want to go to prom with, that kind. Look, I'll tell you a quick funny story. We're going to talk about Arrowhead next. But we had done a game on 9/20, the Arrowhead Memorial game, and our U.S. Marine player of the game was that sophomore, and she's amazing. And I said to her, she has 11 Big Ten offers already. And I said, hey, when you close your eyes at night and you think about, this is the school I would like to go play for, what comes to mind? She goes, I'm 15. I haven't even thought about that. And my Billy Schmidt said she doesn't even have her driver's permit yet. And I started thinking, man, she's 15 years old. I mean, why am I putting more pressure on this kid? And she goes, I haven't thought about it, don't want to talk about it. I want to talk about our next game and how well my team played tonight. And that was pretty impressive to me. But you're right, these are just kids. And I'll tell you what, when they get in the classroom, they got to get their homework done and become student. And look, most of them are student athletes, and we appreciate that. We're going to get to Division I. We got some great teams in Division I that we're going to talk about on the other side of the break. This is the Wendy's Girls Tournament Tip-Off Show, presented by your local Pick and Save stores, only on My 24.